Okay, welcome to our Excel tutorial. And the reason I decided to add this to the Breaking into Wall Street Financial Modeling course is that a lot of people asked me for it. It was my most commonly asked for request once I released the site and made it available to everyone. And just to give you a brief overview of what we're going to cover in this course, so the first thing I want to point out is that we're going to very much follow the 80-20 rule here, which basically says that 80% of your results come from 20% of your effort in most cases, whether it's with a job or with a business or with a sport or anything. So 20% of your effort gives you 80% of your results. And what this means in terms of Excel is that there are hundreds and possibly thousands or tens of thousands of shortcuts within Excel 2003, Excel 2007, all other versions. But we're not going to go through every single one of them. We're going to focus on the shortcuts that you use most often when you're in investment banking or private equity or working in finance. So we're going to be focused on those and focused on the most useful ones that you need to know. We'll start out with the most common ones and then get into the more advanced ones as we progress. And actually, I was thinking about it before, and I think that the ratio here, the rule might be closer to 95-5. So we're going to focus on the 5% of the shortcuts that you use in 95% of cases. And the categories we're going to go through are navigation, manipulation, formatting, formulas, and then advanced topics. And by navigation, I mean how you get through Excel spreadsheets quickly, how you jump around quickly within spreadsheets and workbooks and move around between different cells quickly. By manipulation, I mean how you insert and delete rows, columns, how you can hide and group data together, how you can display it more effectively. By formatting, I mean, of course, formatting the font sizes, the font colors, the actual background colors of cells, things like that. And you may think this is a little bit silly to be going into this, but to be honest, a lot of what you do as an analyst, and sometimes even as an associate, is formatting things, checking things, making things look pretty. So it's actually really important to have a good grasp of this topic. Formulas, of course, anything that involves a calculation in Excel. And these formulas can be simple ones that you make, like multiplication, addition, subtraction, or they can be made using the built-in Excel formula. So Excel has a pretty wide range of common built-in functions. And once again, you don't actually use all of them in banking. In fact, you only use a small fraction of them in banking in most cases. So we're going to cover the ones that will be most useful to you as an investment banking analyst or associate. And then by advanced topics, I'm referring to areas like pivot tables, setting up your own macros, creating your own custom shortcuts, and they're all useful to know. You don't use them quite as much as you use some of the navigation, manipulation, formatting, and formula related shortcuts and Excel topics, but they're still good to know, and some people swear by these. So you'll find people who have very customized Excel setups where they've made all their own macros, they've made all their customized shortcuts and everything, and we'll be getting into that as well. And the method we're going to use to learn all this is that I'm going to give you an Excel spreadsheet that has some very, very poorly formatted data that's all broken and really needs to be fixed. And we're going to go through it step by step. And in each individual video, each individual lesson, I'm going to go through and give you a few of the shortcuts and a few of the functions that you would use to actually format it. And what will happen is over time, as we move through all the lessons in this one course, you're going to end up with a much better formatted file, and you're going to learn a lot about how you actually manipulate data and how you navigate, how you format things, and how you set up formulas within Excel. So you'll watch me do it the first time. You'll see the shortcuts that I'm using, and I'll point them out to you. Then you'll pause the video. You'll practice it yourself to make sure that you remember the keys and you remembered how to do it, and then you'll unpause the video and you can check your work, see if you remember everything, and check it against what I'm doing on the screen. And I'm going to be giving you some customer data. So for example, if you were working on an M&A deal and your client gives you a list of their customers or a list of recent transactions, and the buyers in the deal are asking for it, then you might be charged with formatting the data, making it look pretty, and making it easier for the buyers to manipulate and look at. And this is something that actually happens far more often than you think. I would say that you actually spend more time on manipulating data like this than you do on real financial modeling when you're in investment banking. So it's really important to have a good grasp of this topic. Now, a couple other things I just wanted to point out quickly. Even though I'm going to teach you the most common shortcuts and the most important things to know in Excel here, I can't cover everything. And to be more specific, what I mean is that each bank typically has their own specific Excel macros and their own Excel modifications. And then there's also a common set of macros called the Training the Street TTS macros that the Training the Street company has developed and which a lot of bankers use. A lot of bankers have that. Unfortunately, I cannot provide these within the scope of this program because they're owned by other companies and this is a commercial operation, it's a business, so I can't give you these. Otherwise, I'd be sued and I'd have to shut down the site and it just wouldn't be good for anyone. So keep in mind that I'm going to cover the most basic and the most fundamental shortcuts, but when you actually start working, you will learn other shortcuts and you'll be using some of these other programs. But the most important point for now is to get a really good understanding of what you do, and then you can add to it later on once you start working at a bank when you go into the bank specific material and some of the macros that they use. Another point, and this is something that I've actually been asked about before, is Excel 2003 versus Excel 2007. And you might have noticed that in the screencast so far, I've been using Excel 2007. And basically what I do is I create all the Excel files in Excel 2003, and then I go through and do each of the tutorials in Excel 2007. That's just because that's what came installed with my computer. Most banks are actually still using Excel 2003, and most bankers actually hate Excel 2007 and think it's the worst program ever. The good news is that most of the shortcuts that we go over will actually be the same in 2003 and 2007. There are some additional keystrokes in 2007 for the same shortcuts, and some of the shortcuts from 2003 are broken or don't work correctly, or you need to do something differently in 2007. But the good news is that most of it's going to be the same no matter which version you use, and when there's a difference, I'll just point out and explain the different keys that you use depending on which version of Excel you have. And then finally, this may seem a little bit silly to you, but if you really want to learn how to use Excel well, then after you go through this tutorial, after you go through all these videos, you should really go back through it again, and this time unplug your mouse. Literally remove your mouse from your computer and do not let yourself use it at all. Because then what you can do is really test if you actually know all these shortcuts. When you're using Excel at a bank, there's never really a good reason to actually use the mouse. There are a couple cases where you could argue that the mouse makes one or two specific things easier than just using the keyboard, but those are few and far between, and in 99% of cases, you want to be using the keyboard the entire time when you're in Excel. So go through these the first time, try to learn and pick up what you can, and then go through them a second time. This time, unplug, remove your mouse, and see if you really know the shortcuts. And then what you can do is go back through all the main courses in this program, go through each of them, and this time don't use the mouse at all. Don't allow yourself to use the mouse, and check your understanding and make sure that you know everything. So with that said, now we're going to jump into the actual videos. We're going to start with the very basics in Excel, and then we're going to move all the way up through the more advanced material.